Let's bring in Washington correspondent Jonathan Kersley. This is an unfolding situation, a lot of news coming each hour, and Iran vowing revenge in the wake of the death of the Ayatollah, Jonathan.
They are, as you mentioned. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard, through Iranian state TV, has announced it is going to carry out the most intense offensive operation against Israel and US bases in the region. We wait to see what that looks like, if indeed that is carried out. And I want to bring you a statement that I've just received from the Iranian Armed Forces, which says that we will make the enemies of this nation regret the assassination of Khamenei, and that Iran will continue on the path of Khamenei until the surrender of the enemy. This clearly powerful statements coming out of Iran. The Ayatollah had led the regime for some 37 years. It was a regime described by the United States as the world's worst sponsor of terror. It was a regime that supported the likes of the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias in Iraq and in Syria. And clearly there had been concern from the United States and Israel about the development of nuclear weapons, about the use of ballistic missiles far beyond its borders. In this major combat operation announced by President Trump earlier today and carried out with Israel, it was the largest operation by Israel's air forces, and we saw video released of the strikes on Ayatollah Khamenei's compound. Those strikes taking place around about 9:30 or so local time in the morning, Iran time. We've also seen satellite images of what was left of that compound in the wake of those strikes. And then we heard through Israeli officials and various reporting through news agencies, including Reuters, that Ayatollah Khamenei's body had been found in that rubble. And now the confirmation from Iranian state TV that the Ayatollah is dead. This is an earth-shattering movement that will shake the regime and the foundations of it. And for the people inside Iran itself, we have seen celebrations on the streets of Tehran as people had reacted to the news of the Ayatollah's death. I want to bring you the statement from President Trump, because earlier today, Kieran, he went to Truth Social. He's been based at Mar-a-Lago. That was where he recorded that video statement. That is where he had a makeshift situation room, gathering with key figures to watch this all unfold and get the latest developments. But his statement on Truth Social said, Khamenei, one of the most evil people in history, is dead. He was unable to avoid our intelligence, and working closely with Israel, there was not a thing he could do. He goes on to say, this is the single greatest chance for the Iranian people to take back their country. The heavy and pinpoint bombing, however, will continue uninterrupted throughout the week, or as long as necessary, to achieve our objective of peace throughout the Middle East and the world. And that's the big statement now, is how long is this military offensive going to go on for? Because Israel has already said a number of key senior officials inside the IRGC and inside the regime have been killed in these strikes. You mentioned state TV confirming also the death of the Ayatollah's daughter and a grandchild in these strikes, and they have been vast and expansive across Iran. Now we wait to see exactly how the Iranian regime is going to respond to the news and confirmation of Ayatollah Khamenei's death. But this is what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had to say earlier today.
Jonathan, we'll get to that comment from the Israeli Prime Minister. No, we don't have that. But I want to touch on something you mentioned there, the Iranian retaliation. That has continued. Can you give us the latest on that situation? What news do we have on that front?
Yeah, the Iranian retaliation was swift in response to the initial waves. There were attacks on places including Doha in Qatar and Bahrain, also targeting US bases there. And this is what the Iranian regime had gone after. The United States saying that no US personnel have been killed or injured. The damage was minimal, but the Iranian retaliation we have seen target not only US bases, but it seems also airports have come under attack as well. Dubai's international airport said that 4 people were injured in an incident there. Abu Dhabi's international airport said that 1 person was killed, at least 7 injured in a strike there. And we also saw images out of Bahrain's international airport. So this had been widespread, not just targeting clearly US bases and Israeli interests. We did see too, though, inside Iran, inside Israel itself, that Iron Dome was penetrated, an Iranian missile falling in Tel Aviv. And we heard from that report you delivered from CNN's Jeremy Diamond a short time ago, inside Tel Aviv itself, where the destruction there, you could see from those images, was widespread, and the concern would have been is how is that missile managed to penetrate the Iron Dome. But as far as Iran's retaliation goes, as I mentioned before, the IRGC now saying that it will carry out the most intense strike yet. So what will come of that? That is going to be the key one to watch in the hours that follow, as Iran, what is left of the regime and its leadership, responds to the death of somebody who ruled the regime with an iron fist for some 37 years.
Now, Jono, the UN Security Council has convened. What was the official comment there from Iran as the strikes unfolded, as they were being hit by the United States and Israel?
I think this was really interesting to see as the United Nations brought together the Security Council for this crisis in the Middle East, a moment that could very well define Donald Trump's second term as president. Iran pointed the finger directly at the United States and at Israel, accusing it of breaching the UN Charter, accusing it of breaching international law, and vowing that Iran will continue to defend itself. But, Kieran, it was interesting to note there seemed to be confusion coming out of Iranian officials from the moment that this strike was carried out. We heard the Iranian foreign minister at one point say, yes, the leadership, including the Ayatollah, was alive. Another official then seemed to almost counter that by saying he wasn't sure of the situation. There seemed to be confusion throughout the spokespeople for the regime. But this is what the Iranian ambassador to the United Nations had to say earlier today.
Israel and the United States have attacked Iran. They have violated international law and the Charter of the United Nations. They must be held accountable. So long as this aggression continues, Iran will continue to exercise its inherent right of self-defense.
And Jonathan, the president made it clear, President Trump, this is about regime change. Who could take control?
Well, that's the big question now. If indeed this is the end of the Iranian regime under the Ayatollah and that somebody under his wing will not try and resume control, it is going to be a pivotal moment for the region. I said consequential for Donald Trump because he has taken a big gamble here. He said repeatedly that he would not want to engage the United States in prolonged wars. And in a telephone interview with CBS News here in the United States, he seemed to say and suggest that these strikes could actually open the door for diplomatic talks. We've also seen the United States release new vision, its Central Command, showing some of its military action involved in these strikes today. But when it comes to who next, well, Reza Pahlavi, who's essentially been in exile here in the United States, is somebody who has put himself forward as a potential leader for Iran. And President Trump has said in that interview with CBS that they do have an idea of who could take over the reins when it comes to Iran. Didn't spell out any specific candidate, but this is what Reza Pahlavi put on social media a short time ago. He said the courageous Iranian people have paid a heavy price for freedom. Thanks to President Donald Trump, their hour of liberation is at hand. Regime change is what Donald Trump said that essentially this was all about. He called on the people of Iran to carry out an uprising against the government. And now the big question for Iran is to where to next. And the eyes of the world are watching, Kieran.